Thanksgiving it was different. It
Yeah.
was the in-laws year, which is one of those things where it's always different and it gets bigger every year because people keep adding to that part of the family, which is fine.
Yeah.
But it's different. It's not
Yeah.
my side of the family. And so
Yeah. I get it.
and it's been what, 20 years? Like I should be used to it. Like I should
Yeah.
have been in the family that long, but at the same time it's like they're
Yeah.
still, I don't know, it's weird.
No, I get it. I get it. We do Thanksgiving with my husband's side of the family. And it was funny when we first started. I don't know if we were dating when I went to the first Thanksgiving or married at that point, but my family, my family, they're not drinkers. And so then I go, oh, it was the first Christmas. It was the first Christmas I had with his family, and his uncle comes up and gives me an eggnog. And I was like, okay, sure, eggnog. Not realizing it would be spiked, every alcohol under the sun. It was so strong. And I swallowed it because I didn't want to spit it out. And I was like, oh, yeah, this is great. Thank you. I'm like, whoa, my eyes are watering like flames. Yeah. So yeah, so it is interesting, like getting used to other families' dynamics, and then
Well, and that was a lot of our family thing too, is because my family doesn't drink, but and not all of his does. Like not
mm,
all of his family drinks, but the ones that do it a lot.
imbibe. Yeah,
So by the end of the day, you're going, that was fun,
yeah,
for lack of a better word.
yeah. We
Yeah.
had a cousin's girlfriend that came to Thanksgiving one year, and she got a little too had a little too many glasses of wine. Needless to say, she didn't come back any other year after that
Oh
because
no.
she was a hot mess.
That's
But she was,
wonderful.
we love her and everything, but yeah, it was a bit too much. Like, I'm like, how could you do that? It's not even like your family. Yeah. No one to shut yourself off, hon. But,
Well, and what was bad, and I don't think any of them follow me, but if they do, well, they were there.
I
They
know,
know what
right?
happened. But like
Here we are.
one of them brought her own like mason jar and a cooler and was like just refilling her travel mug with her the whole day. And I was like, are we that bad? Are we really
Yeah,
that bad? I don't
I
think
know, I know.
we're
You have to indulge that much to make it through a day with us. So
Man, like I should take that personally, I guess. I don't
yeah.
know.
I'm trying to fix my light. I don't know why. Is it just because it's so dark here? I don't know. I feel
Mm,
like I'm very dark.
Is it your screen? Because on my screens, I mean, it's dark-ish.
Look at me. I'm like playing with the light. Yeah, it could be my screen.
Oh,
Okay.
there you go. Look, your face just lit up. Whatever you just did, your face
It
lit
could.
up. Oh, that's awesome. So, yeah, I just said I don't know if any of them follow me, and it just occurred to me. I look back here. I've got TikTok back here recording the screen, and my cousin here, Rebecca, she definitely just said hello, and I'm like, yeah, you were there, you know, you were there. Oh, I forgot about that.
Hysterical.
Oh gosh. Okay.
All
Well,
right.
I'm just going to make a quick intro here so people know what's going on. My name is Jennifer Carr, and I host the Connected Conversations for Creatives podcast. It's a weekly podcast. You can find it on Spotify and Apple. And this is the Connected Conversations for Creatives live podcast. And we've been doing a couple of these on and off. It's been really fun because one, I get to hang out with people that I like and think are really cool. And two, it's just another way to get the word out that we have indie authors and musicians and all of these artists and creatives out there who just want a place to share their work. And I love being a part of that. So that's one of my favorite things to do. Now, I'm live streaming my screen on TikTok because TikTok doesn't think I'm quite cool enough yet to have my own thing, to actually stream to their channel from my Restream platform, which is fine. If you want to interact, I won't really be looking too many times. Rebecca says, I do know I was there. I won't look back too many times at my comments on TikTok screen, but you can go to YouTube and see this live at J Carr Writes, and you can interact with us, leave comments, ask questions, whatever you want to do. I should be able to also see them on Facebook at J Carr Writes. And I think Wendy Haller, who is my guest tonight, she's an author, and I think she has it connected to her Facebook page. So if you're friends with Wendy on Facebook, you can go to her Facebook page and you can leave comments, ask questions there as well. But like I said, I will try to kind of turn around and look at the screen of my phone every now and then, but it's really kind of rude and inconvenient to turn your back on your guest. So I won't be doing that a whole lot. That being said, I would love to just say, Wendy, I'm so glad that we got to do this. I know we were going to do it last week, but you had kind of a rough go of it. So
Yeah,
I'm glad we could reschedule.
it's been a hot mess. Yeah, we've been a hot mess in the Haller household. We're getting over it though. We're
Oh,
coming together.
maybe after this week, you'll have everything under control. Hopefully by
No,
Christmas.
it's just like you were saying, like there were just some years where you're like, okay, I'm ready to be done with this and start fresh. You know, I'm
Yes,
just, yeah, we're kind of at that point where we're like, okay, can we just like be done? Like
right.
give us a break 2023. Enough is enough. So,
And if nothing else, I surrender. Like, I
I
mean,
know, exactly. I said that to my husband today. I'm like, where's the white flag? I'm done.
exactly. Oh my goodness. Well, so can you believe that December starts on Friday? Like
Oh,
Friday starts December. I can't either because November, while it was a nice little break, I had a little reprieve from um podcasting and editing podcasts and that kind of thing. But I was also, and I think you did the same thing, I was aiming for a really lofty goal of 50,000 words for a novel. And I didn't quite, I haven't made it there. I still have a good ways to go, and I don't think I'm going to get it before Friday. But you did, right?
yeah, yeah. Yes, I did. I was on a mission. I really was. Yes, I did NaNoWriMo National Novel Writing Month. Don't know why it's in November. I was joking around with some of my writing group peers that like it must have been created by someone that never cooked or hosted Thanksgiving because right there, that's like 5 days. But yeah, the goal of NaNoWriMo is to write 50,000 words in a month. And yeah, how did you do? So you did do it.
Yes, and we still have a few days left, but I'm at
Mhm.
35,000, and I'm happy with that 35,000
Yeah.
because the book that I have coming out in February also was like just at the tail end of the next to final edits with my editor, and I knew that it might overlap a little bit. So technically, I don't think I wrote 50,000 words in both places, but
Yeah.
I have the beginning of a new book, and I have finished and formatted my upcoming release. So I feel pretty good about that, all
Yeah.
things considered.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, I'm not sad
And
about
on
it.
top of all the other things you're doing.
Right,
Yeah. On top of
exactly.
all the other things. Well, that I spent a good amount of October, whatever they call it, October, plotting out, and so I had all my plot points set out. I had started the book for Camp NaNoWriMo in July until I realized that, yeah, my characters were telling me a different story than the one I thought I was going to write. And so then I had to stop what I was doing. So I had like 30,000 words. And I stopped what I was doing, took a step back. I was doing a writing workshop, which was awesome. And I did Save the Cat. So I got all my plot points and I really started to form a relationship with my characters,
Yes.
you know? And it got to the point, and I know you can relate, where it was like, I take the dog out for a walk, and the characters would be like, okay, so here's our next conversation for this scene. And I'm like, wait, I have no paper. I have no pen. I need to go home. I need to get this written down. And it was like the middle of the night or lying in bed with my husband. And I'm like, he's like, are you going to turn the light off? And I'm like, I just have to type, and it was like they took over. So that was a huge, like something I hadn't experienced before.
Now, were you starting a book completely from scratch in October, like with your plotting, or had you already started and you finished it?
So I started the book, yeah. So I started it in July and I got, like I said, it was about 30,000 words. I would say the majority of that got scrapped.
I was going to ask if you had like the whole thing was just done and you started
Me-
over.
The yeah, I have the same families, the same core characters, the storyline completely different. Like it was going to be about the dynamic of this young husband and wife trying to figure out life together. And then all of a sudden, this older sister came in and she was just like, yeah, that's not the story you're going to tell. And I thought the story that she was telling me was going to be like a sequel. But the more I started to plot it out in October, the more I realized, oh, this isn't the story of Claire, the youngest sister, and her husband's relationship. This is the story of the three sisters and their family dynamic growing up. And so basically, the story is called the working title, Flanagan Girls. And the Flanagan girls stick together, and they're three sisters who grew up feeling neglected love from their parents. So they came together. The oldest was 8 years older than the youngest. And so they grew up taking care of each other. But in the process of growing up, they lost that connection. And then as they became adults, realize that they're now neglecting each other. So the neglected love they once felt from their parents, they're now finding in each other. So they've lost that relationship, and it takes something big to make them realize, like, no, the Flanagan girls need to stick together. Like, we need to come back to each other. And it's also about, so I had to do a lot of research on family dynamics, on birth order, because I only have a brother. Not that I only have a brother, but I have a brother. So I don't know sister dynamics. And so I had to do a lot. Yeah. So I basically kind of scrapped with the original story, kept the same families, but really focused on just the sisters themselves. And it's so crazy to me. And I mean, I'd love to hear if you've experienced this too, that like they kind of took over and they told their story. I was just the conduit. They told the story through me.
Oh, that's my favorite. Like when the story just kind of shows up and you hear their voices in your head. And anybody who has never sat down to write a book or, anything like that, they probably think, wow, these people are nuts. But
Oh, yeah.
seriously, like they sit there and you have these people in your head that you are just, it's like watching a movie in my head. And I'm just
Yeah.
like, oh, here are their words. Here's their dialogue. Here's what's happening next. And it just kind of goes. And I love when that happens. And when they go silent, I feel it's eerie. Like I'm
Yeah.
going, I'm not done with you. What's next?
Yeah. Well, so now I'm in the editing phase. So I'm going through and I'm doing my first, so that I finished the first draft, NaNoWriMo. I have 52,000 words. I'm hoping to get it to, I mean, ideally I'd love it at 70,000. I'm not going to put pressure on myself.
Yes.
The story is the story, however it's meant to be told. I did leave like holes for like flashbacks where I needed to lay the breadcrumbs of, the story and their relationship and how it went from this close threesome to now they're away from each other, and where that separation, abandonment, as Claire, the youngest, feels this abandonment from her two older sisters, where that happened. So I had to lay the breadcrumbs. So instead of, when I was doing NaNoWriMo, I just put in highlight, I'd like comment, flashback, and then I put it in and I'd like, okay, I'm going to go back to you. I just got to keep moving forward. Just got to keep moving forward. And so I went back and I filled them in, but it's so funny now because I've edited up to chapter 8 and I had to go back for 5, 6, and 7. And because I'm like, there's something missing.
Yep.
There's a scene missing. It's floating. It's here. I can feel it here, but it's not showing itself to me right now. So today, we've talked about this before. I have psoriatic arthritis, so I went for red light therapy for my psoriasis, and I'm talking to the technician and I'm like, she's like, so what are you going to do after you leave here? Like, like, just filler conversation, ma'am. and I'm like, well, I'm working on this book. I'm going to go home and I'm going to do the edits and I'm going to reread chapters. So I'm like, I spew. I'm like, I'm going to reread chapters 5, 6, and 7 because the scene is here. I know it's there, and then I got to a point where I came home and I did it and I'm like, it's not there yet. It's going to come to me. So I'm just going to keep moving forward, but it's interesting. And I actually I walk the dog every day and we live near a cemetery and I walk the dog up and around the cemetery and I always pay homage to those that came before us. And I talk to, I know someone that's there laid to rest, and I'm always like, hi, Papa, to one of my former students' grandfather. And so I was up there, and a whole new character for a different story came in, and I was like, ooh, that's good. I'm like, no, no, no. I can't. I can't. You need to go away. Have you had that happen?
Yes.
I'm like, oh my heavens. I'm like, no, I need to finish this first.
Yes, and it's so unfair because I feel like I should be paying more attention here, and I feel guilty. I'm like, they're like my children. I don't know, but I'm going like, I need to pay attention to you, but right now is not the time, honey. Like,
I
we're
know.
not.
Well, I'm like, this poor woman, her life is in distress. And I'm like, I want to save you. I just can't do it right now. So stay in distress until like January.
If you could just hold on one more
I know.
month, that'd be
Yeah.
great. Yes. I totally get that because when I wrote book 2 of I have these 2 books here, and this was my first one and this is my second one. And when I wrote the second one and sent it off to my editor, my intention was to immediately start book 3 of that series because I had the epilogue in book 2 and I was like, all right, I know where I'm going. And then all of a sudden I heard this song. I heard a song, and I love 90s country music. Like that is like my all-time jazz is my all-time favorite. 90s country would be my second favorite. And so, and specifically 90s because their songs were such good stories. Like 90s
Yeah.
country is like
Oh, the songwriting. Yeah.
storytelling music. And
Mhm.
it's not the same. Country music before and after has never been the same. And so, but I heard a song that I've always loved it. It's Brantley Gilbert's Fall Into Me. And the chorus is like, fall when you're ready. And all of a sudden, these 2 characters popped into my head and they started telling me their story from childhood best friends, and they fall in love and all this stuff, and their first dance, this song, that, whatever. And so that series just got put on the back burner because these 2 characters were like, right now.
Yes, yes. I'm first. Me first. Yeah.
Yes. And so now that book will be out in February, and I'm just like, how wonderful. And then immediately I was like, ooh, and these 2 characters from that book also need their story, but then this guy will also need a story from, and like they are just blips on the radar in the book. But I mean, all of a sudden now I have 35,000 words in this one and about 5,000 words in this one. And I'm going, why can't I just finish one thing? One
I
thing.
know.
That's all I'm
I
asking.
know.
One thing.
It's so hard. Well, I wrote like, my next, one of the 2 next projects, I don't know, you know how that is. So I was planning on my goal is to get my first edit of the first draft done before December 1st. Yeah, we'll see if that happens. But for December to send it off to the editor. And I'm actually, because it's my first novel and I'm so used to writing short form, and this is my first long form. And that was my big thing, is I wanted to prove. So I wanted to prove to myself that I could write long form, since I've written children's books and poetry for such a long time, but I've always wanted to write a novel. And then when the characters took over, it was like, oh yeah, this is not an option. Like, they're just gonna, yeah. They're just like in there going, okay, just keep your fingers moving, lady. Just tell the story. Don't worry about it. I was like, okay, yes. And so when I reached the 50,000, I was like, but wait, there's still more scenes. There's still more. So I started, but they were random. So I had to start, a separate document. So I have those other random scenes that I still want to fit in to tie everything. So I'm getting to is that I'm seeking out a colleague who is a developmental editor.
Yep.
So I think I'm going to, because this is my first novel and this is such a new form for me, that I'm going to go through developmental editing before I go into copy editing or proofreading or whatever. Yeah. So, because it's such a process. And
It is a process. And I love, like, okay, so disclaimer, my sister is my editor, is my initial reader aside from my husband and all this stuff. And so like I've asked her, I'm like, hey, I'm looking first read through developmental. That is what
yeah,
I'm looking for. And so like she's my all in one. She does it all. But I literally 2 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago, I had a message. I had responded to a comment that I had seen in a Facebook group. This girl has changed genres, and she writes in the same genre that I just wrote in. And she was like, I'm switching genres, and I was looking for a critique partner because, switching over to people who, are used to reading one thing and then are not familiar with your new. And I was like, send me a message. Let's talk about it. And so we did like a trial run where I sent her 3 chapters, she sent me 3 chapters, and she went through. And I was like, okay, what are we looking for here? She was like,
Yeah.
basically developmental, and that's good because like I can speak real good even from Alabama, but like grammatical, don't make me choose commas and don't make me choose like
Yeah.
don't make me do that. I can't. No, I'm like sparkle commas, like glitter commas everywhere. Commas just in case, whatever. And so we did this developmental thing where I read through her first 3 chapters and left notes, and she read through mine. And I was like, first of all, you're a way better critique partner than I will ever be, because she was like, just move this here, here, here. And I was like, yes, could you just write this for me? Like, I'll tell you what I want it to be about, and you just do it. That'd be amazing. But to have that like outside looking in from the very
Oh,
beginning, I'm like, I cannot wait to see where this goes, because like I'm terrified and excited all at the same time.
yeah. Well, and also at least, we have, like you said, it plays like a movie in your head. And so I'm already seeing it, and I know my characters, I know the setting, I know, so I'm already visualizing all of that. So you do need someone who can step in and be like, there's not enough description in there. I'm like, but I see it, but I haven't written it, So it's good to have. I actually, I have 2 other colleagues that I have been doing some critique work with, and we swapped first chapters. And one of them sent me back my first chapter, and there were so many comments. And my initial thought is like, oh, I did
Yes.
a good job. Yeah. But then when I read, I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Like, this is such good feedback. I was so appreciative. And then one of them suggested you should start the first chapter with the same line that you ended it, so it buttons it up. I'm like, oh, I love that idea.
Oh my gosh, that outside perspective is so beneficial, and I am so wary about who I let see that first draft, because I am terrible at, when I am writing, I'm going to self-edit the heck out of something before
Yeah.
I even put it on the page. I'm like, no, that doesn't sound right. Let me think about this before I put it down. And so it slows me way down. And so it's taken me 2 years now just to get to the point where I will let somebody else, like willingly let somebody else read my first crap. Like it's not great. Yep.
Well, I shared my first draft with like my husband and then one of my good friends, and now I'm like, and then I started like editing it, and I said, I haven't edited. I just want you to have it. Take a look at it. Tell me if it makes sense, if it's tying together. Just do the first 4 or 5 chapters. And now that I've edited it and gone through, I'm like, don't look at it. It's not ready yet. I'm like, oh, but they already have it. But we're such our worst critic.
We are. I know I am for sure. And I get jealous when people are like, "Oh yeah, just read it." And I'm like, "I can't. No, don't just read it." Like, nope, nope. But I have gotten a lot better about it, and I feel, especially when I see the benefit of it, but I'm not saying just go hand it out to the next guy on the street either. Like, make sure that you can trust the person
Yeah.
to protect your work and not try to make it their own. I think that can also happen if you're not careful.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, absolutely. But there's a part of me, like, my goal is to hopefully get this book off to an into editing phase with the professionals, or whoever, out of my hands into someone else's, to step away. And then I have my second poetry book, which I have all the poems I need to start putting together. And then hopefully by January, I'm doing a series. It's called From This Day Forward. And each book is going to be a wedding vow, for better, for worse, in sickness and in health. And it's all like an event happens from this day forward. How do we move on?
Oh.
How do we recover? Because that's just part of life and marriage. And how do we ebb and flow as a couple through these things? And so that was the girl, the character that's like in turmoil. I'm like, I know, I'm going to get to you. I promise. Just stay in turmoil a little longer, But so I had to sit there and like map it out. Okay, I got my wedding vows. I have this story for this and this story for that, and they're kind of like, one is like a family. I don't know. I want to say suspense thriller, or it's very dramatic, and another one is just so sweet, and so they're very different. I don't know if I'm ever going to fit into any particular genre because I'm all over the place, but I really think or at least I did not know everything that went into writing
Yeah.
besides the writing. My heavens. It's
Yes. It's so
crazy.
time consuming and mental capacity consuming and just discipline. Like, oh my gosh.
Yes. Like, even just like, okay, I plotted out the book. All right, I wrote the book. I realized I got to add like 4 more chapters divided into here. But then, the finish, then it's like, okay, I'm going to edit. And then I'm going to send it to, if it goes to a developmental editor, that makes sure the storyline is, flowing and the characters have purpose. And then it goes to the copy editor and the proofreader. And then it's like, and then you got to find, are you self-publishing, traditional? Like, I don't. So it's interesting because when I say like, oh, I've published a book, and people are like, oh, and they look at you different. And I'm like, oh no,
It was
but
nothing.
yeah, so I have to tell you a funny story. So on Thanksgiving Day, we were in Delaware at our cousin's house who was hosting, and her daughter, who is 9, says to me, what do you do or what do you do? Like, instead, what do you do? A typical 9-year-old. And I said, well, I was a teacher, because I was a teacher for
Mhm.
19 years, and I'm just not teaching this year, or as of right now. And she goes, what do you mean you was a teacher? And I'm like, well, I'm not teaching right now. And she goes, well, then what are you doing? And I said, well, I've been writing books. She goes, so you're an author? And I said, yeah. And she goes, well, then why don't you just say that? Just say I'm an author. And I was like, I don't know. Like,
It's
oh,
weird, isn't it?
kids just call you out. And I'm like, okay, I'm an author. Like, I don't know. I don't
I
know.
I get that because I actually had a girl at church. She was like, now, so I had shown up late to pick up my kid. Well, I wasn't late to pick her up, but I was late for the beginning of things. And I was like, hey, she's like, where have you been? I was like, well, I was at work. She's like, what do you do? And I was like, well, I had a podcast. And she was like, you have a podcast? And I was like, yes. Like, it's not that. She's like, that's the coolest thing ever. I'm like, I mean, is it?
I know.
I don't know. Thanks, I guess. But like, why do we do that though? Because like to me, when I'm like, you think of these big podcasters, you got your Joe Rogans and your Ben Shapiro, whoever you're listening to,
Yeah.
and you're like, oh my gosh, like those are big name podcasts. I just have a little podcast, but dude, like I've done over 100 episodes and it's international, right? Like I've interviewed people in different countries and it's cool. But why do I downplay it?
I
Why
know,
that's
and
pretty
it's
cool.
work, and you're putting in the work. That's so much
Yes.
involved. And yeah, why do we downplay what we do?
I don't
Yeah.
know but I do it with being an author too. I'm like, well,
Yeah.
people are like, oh, you wrote a book. I'm like, well, technically I've written 3. And they're like, oh, and I'm like, I played it around in my imagination for a few weeks and I came up with a
I
book.
know. I know. Well, that's how I feel about my children's books. I'm like, yeah, I wrote a children's book. Like, I'm like, but I've been a teacher for 19 years, so it's just writing what I know. But that's being an author, write what you know.
Exactly. I don't know
Yeah.
why because you think J.K. Rowling, she's an author. I just
Yeah.
write books.
I know.
No, I did the
So
same thing she did.
yeah. So let me ask you your thoughts on traditional self-publishing, and hybrid.
Okay.
I'm curious to know what your thoughts are. Oh, and I have one other question. I'm going to write. I have to take notes or I'll forget. I'm going to
Oh,
write
that's
it
cool. No, that's
down. Okay,
cool.
go ahead.
So I wanted to go traditional because I thought, that would be the easy way to go. And it's just that's all I knew that you were supposed to do, right? Self-publishing is not something that when someone sets out to write a book, they immediately say, I want to do everything myself. They
Yeah.
think it's easier to find somebody. Well, let me tell you, like 90 rejections later, I finally said, after 90 rejections and a lot of research, I can do it myself on my timeline without somebody else telling me, oh, your cover's not good enough, your title's not good enough, change this in your story and change that in your story. And I was like, oh, like I have a say, I can do this myself and have a say. And so I went self-published after, like I said, a lot of rejections. And it was so unfortunate because I had an agent on the line. Like it was probably 4 or 5 months into the thing, send me this. Finally, it was a full manuscript. And she was like, you're just not ready. And I was like, oh, okay. It took you this long. Like after all of this, it took you this long to realize.
Yeah. Oh,
And so I know it was like ridiculous. And so that's when I just took things that matters into my own hands. I was like, sure, why not? I can do this. No problem. And I have really, once I really figured out and heard stories from other people who were so, traditionally published, whatever, I was like, okay, self-publishing is definitely the way for me. But then I've had several interviews with people who have either used hybrid publishing or I did an interview with the founder of Atmosphere Press, who is also they are a hybrid press. They do hybrid publishing, which
mhm.
means that the publisher and the author have a very close relationship, and the author gets final say in everything. And so, that would be an option because they also help with the marketing and that kind of thing. Now, it costs money, whereas with traditional publishing, you shouldn't be paying anything. They should, there's a contract involved there, and where you get paid at some point, but you shouldn't be putting money up front. With hybrid, you're paying for your editor, you're paying for marketing, publicity, that kind of thing. So I see the benefit of it, but I'm also putting in that money as self-published as well, and I have full total
Yeah.
control of who I use for my cover art, who I use for my editing, and that kind of thing. So my opinion is, what you need, and if you need all in one, maybe hybrid is for you. If you know that you are okay going through the querying process, then traditional is for you. But I know for me, self-publishing
Yeah.
completely was the way to go.
Oh, that's good. That's interesting. I did the self-publishing with the poetry book and with my poetry book. And the second one, I'll also do it the same. I love my editor. She's amazing. She's a wonderful poet herself. With my children's books, I went through a mirror publishing, and it was a hybrid. And it wasn't, the cost wasn't really that much, to be honest with you. And I think because I did my own editing, I was paying for the illustrator, I was paying for my author's copies of the books. So, like I said, it really didn't cost me too much, but I can't draw. I didn't know
Yeah.
the illustration stuff, all of that. Um, but I think moving forward, especially with this book, my first book is going to be self-published,
Mm,
just for what you were saying. Like, I need, and it's a great way to learn the business,
yes.
and it's a really great way to really learn what's involved in the whole making.
Yes.
And it's like kind of working from the ground up. It's like starting out in the mailroom and we're just going to work our way up. And so it's interesting now because now I'm like every workshop I've been taking, doing a lot of online to learn more about the business. So that was going to be my next question. How do I want to phrase this? Because we've both had careers
Right.
that are different. How was that transition for you from being in I don't know, traditional job, if you want to call it, to this, like the business is you?
So technically, it wasn't that big of a switch because I've always worked for me. I've always
Oh,
owned my own business. So when I was a wedding planner, it was my business. When I
mm,
was a marriage and family counselor, it was my business. Like I wasn't under anybody else
okay.
because it's a to thine own self be true kind of thing. Like I have had jobs where I worked for somebody else and I learned really quickly that was not best for me. And I think that's been one of the my favorite parts about learning how to publish a book and just kind of jumping into this world was that I learned what worked best for me. And I think that's where if you immediately say I want to go traditional, that's fine. You can go through that process, but you will, like you said, learn so much more when you start doing it for yourself. And so learning the business in general not that big of a transition. Learning the book publishing business is it's different. It's a little different. But that's why I started the podcast, because
Yeah.
I wanted the resources and the people out there who had more experience than I did. And then I interviewed them and then just shared the information with everybody else. Like that
Yeah.
was
No,
the easiest way to do it.
no, and I love it. I love it. Who's the girl that you just had you had on that was talking about taxes?
Yes, Kristen.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So
Yeah.
I've only listened to the part one, not part two.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, well, I need to stop because I need to take notes now.
Yeah.
I
Yes.
mean, there's a lot of good information. And I think that's what's so wonderful that I've found, and I'm sure other industries have it, but I have definitely found that in the author world is it's so collaborative. Like all the authors, they want
Yes.
to, it's, I don't feel competition.
I don't either.
It's really we're all trying to lift each other up and support each other and give guidance. I have this wonderful author friend, Jack Matthews, um, who wrote this beautiful book, Arte Perdida, which takes you on a life epic journey through many countries. And he just took me under his wing and he's like, this is how artisan markets work and this is how marketing works. And I just met him the first day going to a meeting for Connecticut Authors and Publishers Association. And then I met so many other people too that are my critique partners now. And everyone, yeah, it's like there's room enough for all of us.
Yes. Yes. Now, will I'm just going to be completely transparent. Are there
Mhm.
times where I see other people and I go, "Dadgum, why did that work for them and not for me?"
Oh
Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like sometimes
yeah,
that jealousy or that envy, I
yeah,
don't know, just kind of rears its ugly head.
yeah,
But then I quickly remind myself that, I don't know how long they've been trying either,
yeah, yeah.
So, yeah.
Well,
Mhm.
that's what interesting when I was doing a workshop with Jennifer Grable, who's also an editor, and I'm doing another workshop with her in January. And I remember just being in her workshop and like listening to all of the things. And then finally, in one of the coaching sessions, she was like, you just have to figure out what you want out of it.
Yeah.
What you want out of this. Do you want it to be a hobby? Do you want it to be a career? And at the time that she asked me the question, I'm like, I just want things to happen. This is so new for me. I want it to be authentic. I want it to happen organically. And now that I've kind of gotten over that hump of proving to myself, actually, I'm telling you, these characters, the sisters, took me into their little sisterhood and hugged me into their circle. And they're like, okay, we're going on a journey together. And they just kind of showed me, like, this is a good path for you. Like, you can do this. Like, look, we're helping you. We're giving you our story to tell.
Yep.
And there are more to come. Not of that, but just more stories to tell.
Yeah.
And now I know when I go back into this workshop with Jen again, I'm going to be able to say, I want to make this a career.
Yeah.
Like, I want to do this. Like, I'm ready to, like, I guess put in the work. I don't know what you want to call it, but it's not just like an idea in my mind, like, oh, I'd like to one day write a book. Like, now it's like, no, the bug hits.
Yep.
You know that
Yep.
bug hits. It's like, oh, I want to write.
I
And
mean,
then it becomes like, I have to. I have to.
yes.
I have to get this out of me.
Yes. Well, and I was actually the podcast I was editing today was with this older man. I think he's 71. I want to say he's either 71 or I think he's 71. And he had his full-time career and he decided that he wanted to become an author. And our whole goal of that episode was to just say that age is not a factor, right? You could start, and I have interviewed so many, like one of my favorite interviews was because I love older people. Like they just have no filters. And sometimes
Yeah.
you're just like, oh my gosh. And so she was the most entertaining person ever. But she was like, I think she's 80. Anyway, but like age doesn't factor into this. As long as you know why you want to do something, just do it. Right.
Yeah.
Like time doesn't have to pass at a certain rate for you. Just decide this is what I want to do and try it. And then decide, is it what I want to do full time? Is it something? Because another author that he was on one of my lives a couple weeks ago, he's a lawyer by day and an author by night.
Yeah.
And that authorhood, that authorship that he does is because it's a way to blow off steam, right? Like it's
Yeah.
a way to get out of the contract and legalese and all that stuff. And he can just use his creative brain. And so
Yeah.
know your why, just know why.
Exactly. And we
Yeah.
all need an outlet. And if that's his outlet, that's amazing. Like
Yes.
find your outlet, like you said, find your why. And I think that I'm learning through life. And I can we talk about like a lot about embrace the journey, keep evolving. Um, and the difference between trusting the journey is like, oh my gosh, I'm going to trust this is going to work, but I'm not sure. And then embracing it is just like, okay, I'm riding this wave. I'm
Yes.
just embracing it. And then I think what I've learned, especially through the past year with the health issues that I've had, is that, and writing now, something that I've wanted to do. I was a journalism major, but then I became a teacher, preschool special ed teacher, life. And, but what's your heart's desire? And
Yes.
go for it. Why not?
Yes. Yes. And just because it wasn't your heart's desire 6 years ago doesn't mean it can't be today. Like it changes.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah. And you never know. Like you could be like, oh, wait, what, I never thought this would happen. Well, great. That's okay. Embrace it. Go for it,
Yeah.
you know?
Now, and I will tack on to that though, and this was something that, again, I've only been doing this for a few years, like it hadn't been that long, but you have to set realistic expectations for yourself and for your work because we see, again, you see so and so is so successful and so fast. Yeah, they probably have been writing that same book for 10 years, who knows,
Yeah.
whatever. So set those expectations for yourself and understand that reality is you've written a book, you've already done more than like the 1%. You know what I mean? Like you've
Yeah.
already done it. But don't expect it to shoot to the bestseller list your first go around. Like
Yeah.
that's not realistic.
Yeah. Well, I think for me with the Flanagan girls is going through the process, learning about the process, telling their story the best that I possibly can. And then in the end, I want to publish the ebook, the print, and an audiobook. I want to do that all at once. And then I felt like, okay, I've learned the process, but I've also honored this story,
Yes.
and I think that for me will be like the feeling of accomplishment of doing right by this story.
Yeah.
I
Well,
don't,
I think you have to also know where is your feeling of success going to come from, right? For
yeah,
me, like audiobook was not an option only because the price tag was just a little out of my league. And I have thought more than once, like I could do a Kickstarter kind of thing. I personally don't want to record it myself. That's just not, that doesn't appeal to me. I don't have the space. I don't have the technology for it. And so it's kind of, that one is one of those things that I'm like, if I do it great. What my success feels like is when somebody leaves a review, and it doesn't happen often because people are scared to review books. I don't know, but I had this review left the other day, and I mean, she just spoke to my heart, and she made
yeah,
every word I put on the page feel like it was meant for her, and that I had accomplished exactly what I set out to accomplish. And I was like, well, it was one person, but it was one person that
yeah,
beforehand I didn't know. So anyway,
yeah,
that's, you just have to know what you're going to count as success, right? What matters
absolutely.
for you? Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that was another thing is that if I could have one person walk up to me and say, I couldn't put it down,
Yes.
that means that you fell in love and you got wrapped up in the story and fell in love with the characters,
Yes.
and because I love that.
Yes. Oh,
When
yes.
you're just like, okay, can I just turn the world off so I could just curl up in a ball and just finish this book? Like, I don't want to do anything. I want to read. You get so wrapped up in a world that someone else has created and characters that are so rich that they've, speak to you. But it's funny you say that. I had I thought I had one handy. I guess I don't. But I had she is an author and she gave me feedback which was really nice. And you're right. Some people I don't know are afraid of reviews. So I do have it, but she left a review on my Amazon for my poetry book. And it was so sweet. And it was so beautiful that when I made bookmarks to hand out at the artisan craft fairs and things markets that I've been doing. And I put her quote on the bookmark
That's
because
smart.
it was so beautiful. And I was like, but she got it.
Yes.
Like what she said is exactly what I was hoping
That's awesome.
someone would get from the poetry, from my poetry, and that's, that's like, okay, that's kind of that feeds the soul.
It does. And I will also say, like, the book behind me just caught my attention. Like, writing book 2 was so much harder, but I didn't stress about writing book 2 because I wasn't also stressed about what comes after writing the book because I'd already done it once. And so, like, it's
Oh,
kind of a nice little balance there where, like, publishing it and getting it out there was so much easier for book 2. And I had this conversation, I think Rachel Corsini, she's an author who her podcast came out last week or the week before, and we had literally talked about this, that writing book 2 is hard. Publishing book 2, cakewalk.
oh my gosh, isn't that funny? It's
Yeah.
like pregnancies. You never know what each one is going to be.
Yes, exactly. So, maybe, and by book 3, I'm just like, oh yeah, I got this. We're golden. Now, was it easy to write? Ish.
Yeah.
Because, it's long. Oh my gosh, it's so long. I didn't mean for it to be long, but book 3 here that comes out in February is like 129,000 words.
Oh,
It's long.
wow.
Yeah,
Was
it's
that
long.
hard? Did you get burnt out?
I didn't get burned out. I struggled to cut words. My editor was like,
Oh.
"You have to cut words." And I was like, "But I love them too much. I can't take their story away." And she's like,
Yeah.
"Make it bonus material, but you have to cut words."
Yeah. That's so funny.
So weird. Yeah.
There's a paragraph. It's funny you say that because there's like a paragraph that in chapter 5 of my book that I love, and I know it's going to get cut, but I'm just going to let someone else cut it. I'm like, I'm not ready to see it go. I just love it.
And that is so funny to me. But I did love, so my characters, they grow up together. And so you have this whole scene, well, this whole like really long chapter, but it's homecoming week in high school and they have dress up days every day. And so you really see their dynamic and their relationship and just their personalities come out. And she was like, "You don't need the whole week." And I was like, "Yes, I do need the whole week." Like, I had already written the whole week. She's like, "No, you don't. Like, you need this day and you need this day." And she was like, "Just make the rest bonus material." And I was like, "Oh yeah, I don't actually have to delete it and trash it. Like, I can use it later for something else if I wanted
Yeah.
to." But so I thought I was like, "Thank you, editor friend, sister of mine."
Oh,
Yeah.
but because I have to say, when with those first 30,000 that I wrote in July, knowing when I started NaNoWriMo that there's hardly any of it that I was going to use, I did put it into a separate document. I'm like, but I wrote those words. Those words matter.
They do matter. Oh my goodness. Like, because they are yours. You poured your time, your energy. It's part of you on that page.
Yeah. Exactly. And I'm like, but that's a good scene, or but that matters to me. I'm like, I don't know where I'm ever going to use it again, but I'm going to hold on to it.
I
And
know.
I have gone back and I've used pieces of it, but as I've gotten to know my characters better, and found their language and the way they talk, and I go back and I look and I'm like, yeah, that's not them, but I can rephrase this, or I can use this in a different way.
That's a good sentiment, right? Like, oh yeah, I really like the way that those words kind of flowed. And I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, I don't know if I could ever do this, but could you use it in a different book with different characters, or would that be like cheating on your characters? I don't know. I don't know.
Oh my gosh, that's hysterical.
Just
The funny thing is about anyone watching, this is all fiction. Like, this is all make believe. This is all in our head.
we're just imagining this stuff, but I
Yeah.
can't. Like, can I
They're
do
gonna be
this?
mad. They're gonna be mad. I was that good little Christian girl that I would always. This is so sad. I'm admitting this, but I was just raised a good little Christian girl, and like the loaf of bread, I was always the one to eat the ends because I felt bad, because I thought they'd feel bad that no one wanted them. The bread has no feelings. It does not care. My husband still makes fun of me, and he's like, "Can I get rid of this?" I'm like, "No, you can't throw that away."
I'm so with you on that. So funny. Oh my gosh. Well, like my mom always said, that's where all the flavor is at the end
Yeah.
pieces, but she wouldn't eat them. And I was like, I get it. That is too funny. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Wow. All right. So do you have like a release date in mind for your book?
March is speaking to me. I really feel like March is speaking to me. I am going to a writer's retreat the end of January, and my plan is at that point to start plotting out. The next book I'm going to write is in my From the Stay Forward series. It's it's the first book in the series is called In Sickness and in Health, about traumatic brain
Mm.
injury. And so my goal, and I think, is to have it released be ready for March. Yeah, I don't know why. March is speaking to me. I feel like I need to sit with it. I want to take the time to go through each step to learn the process, like the book cover designing and, all those. And I don't know, would you say, I hear a lot of people talk about like making your team, find your team, make your team. I feel like I'm in that stage where I have good critique people, and I have an editor, and I'm just like, I want to take my time to really do this right with all the elements.
Okay, so real quick, we have a comment. The ends of the bread loaf are the best parts, much like the start and end of a good novel. That's so nice.
That's we should, that's like that should be like the opening blurb for a book.
I love it.
Write a book about a baker.
You know what? I used to own a bakery,
Yes, there you go. That's your autobiography quote.
I love that.
Yeah, that's
Awesome.
fantastic. I love it. That is so good.
How do I make
But yeah, so my hope is to have it out in March, because I really do want to have the ebook, the audiobook, and the paperback all at one time. Maybe it's the teacher in me. Maybe it's the fact that as the teacher in me, I want to teach to everyone's learning styles, to have everyone's reading styles.
I get that. Well, and I will say that, if an audiobook can't happen, because this is, especially if it's cost restrictive or anything like that, we have found there are apps that, the PDF is available. So for instance, if you make your book available through like BookFunnel, I think you can sell through BookFunnel, and they can download the PDF. They can have a PDF reader read it to them. Almost as good. That's what my husband does. He's got like the mildest form of dyslexia, that reading is really hard, but listening is his go-to. So when I send him my manuscripts, I'm like, here's the PDF. And he just has the little computer lady read it to him, which has come a long way. It's not as bad as it used to be. Like the ends of the bread are.
I was just going to say, not so robotic.
It's not as bad as it used to be, but yeah, but I think releasing it all at one time, that is a fantastic goal. And that makes me really envious of you.
I think it could just be the teacher in me. I don't know. I just feel
I
like
get
I want
it.
all modalities to me, everyone's needs. And I have some colleagues that are going, I want to say, is it ACX? I think it's Amazon's, where it's a 50-50 split royalty, or something where you don't pay anything up front, but they split the royalties.
Yes.
So that might be something that I'll be exploring as well. I would read the book myself, but I got a Minnie Mouse voice, and no one needs to hear all that. So
I have like my voice for the women and for the men characters would all be the same. And I don't want to listen to that. I don't want to read that either.
Yeah.
So
I know. Anytime I play back or hear my voice back, I'm like, I think I might have told you this when we did the podcast, that like I could answer the phone when people answered landlines, and if it was a telemarketer, I'd be like, I'm sorry, my mom's not here right now, and people would believe me. So it'd be very hard to do like a man trying to like woo a woman with my voice.
hey, baby.
Exactly. I'd be like, I'm not buying it. I'm just not buying it.
No, I'm with you. And oh my goodness, like just listening to the podcast when I'm editing it, I'm like, man, I can't stand it. I don't hear it now, but I'll hear it later, and I'll be like, no, I don't like it.
Well, as a yoga teacher, also being a yoga teacher, I've recorded meditations for some of my students before, and they're like, oh, I love it. It lulls me to sleep. And I'm like, really? I'm sorry for you. You really needed to sleep. I don't know. You were tired. Yeah.
I love that though. And you have a very pleasant voice. I like your voice. It's very pleasant. I had somebody ask if I would do a voiceover. It was one of the girls, she was on the podcast and she does comic books, and she's like, "Hey, will you do a voiceover?" And I'm like, "A voiceover? Like, really? Like,
Yeah.
you want to hear me again?"
Well, I was like, if I could do cartoon characters, that would be great. Yeah.
Our kid has said more than once. She's like, "I'd love to be a voice actor," and I'm like, "You probably need to learn a few more voices than your one." I love
Unless
you
you're
guys.
Maggie Simpson. If you're Yeardsley Smith that does Maggie Simpson, then you get a career for life.
Exactly.
20 years of the same voice.
That's true. Like, if you can find your character and you
Yeah,
promise they're going to
exactly.
last for 20 years, that's
Yeah.
oh yeah.
Yes, that's your niche. Go
Oh
for
my
it.
gosh. Well, what else do you want to talk about? Because I know that you've got a household full of people who need you this evening. And so I don't want to take your whole night, but what else do you want to talk about?
I don't really know. What do you want to talk about? Now, I mean, life is life.
Yeah.
We just roll with it, you know.
Oh yeah.
I'm thrilled that, it is. Did you read, oh gosh, what is that book? The light we cannot see. All the light we cannot see.
No, it has been on my TBR forever, but I have been told that it's very emotional, and I don't know that I keep avoiding it for that reason.
Well, so the Netflix has the series out now.
Right.
Only 4 episodes, and it is a beautiful
Mm.
translation of the book. And that's been my year. All the light we cannot see.
Mm.
There has been a lot of light that just we didn't see in this crazy year, and I think a lot of people probably in the last few years or in their lifetime is like, those little cracks that come through of light or whatever. So for me, this writing experience, getting to meet you, doing these things, it's been there's the light. There's the light.
And you know what? Sometimes you have to look for it really hard. You
Yeah.
really do, especially and I was working on a lesson that I'm teaching on Sunday. I'm teaching Sunday school, and we started Advent season, and it's talking about how, God came to earth to dwell, like he was here to dwell with us. He dwelled with Adam and Eve in the garden and all of this stuff. And even when his children can't see him, when they don't feel like he's really there, he's not that pillar of smoke or or fire and the cloud and that kind of thing. When you can't see him, he's still there. You just sometimes have to look for his presence to be there with you. And I feel that way in life sometimes. It's like I'm by myself, and it's like, no, you're really not. You're surrounded by anybody and everybody that you need. You just sometimes have to open your eyes and look for it. And that's true about the light too. Sometimes you just have to be like, it's not that dark. It's really not.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
When I was in high school, I'm going to age myself right now. You just turned 40, right?
I did. You see my 40 up there? I got my 40.
Happy birthday. I know, I saw the video with your daughter. Oh my gosh, it was hysterical. Hysterical. Boy, they just know how to. Yes, exactly.
Yes.
But I remember high school when, gosh, now I'm going to blank. Wilson Phillips had the song that came out.
Hold on.
Hold on for one more day.
Yeah.
Yes. Hold on for one more day. Things will go your way, right? And so that ended up being my yearbook quote. Quoting Wilson Phillips. I don't know. My daughter's a senior. I forgot what she did for her yearbook quote. It might have been, I don't know. I want to say, I don't know if it was Beyonce. I'm going to get in trouble. I should just stop talking about that. But anyways, they were big at the time. And so I quoted Wilson Phillips. And
it's a great motto. It's a great motto.
See?
That's hilarious. I love it. And that doesn't really age you because that's classic. Like they still play that on the radio. So nobody knows if you heard it like 10 years ago or,
Yeah, it's kind of like Rick Astley. You just start singing along and you're like, I can't believe I'm singing. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Speaking of, did you know he's got like new music out?
No, really?
Yes. You need to get, when you're on TikTok next time, you need to look. He's got a new song. It's pretty
funny. My gosh, more than 2?
Right? I mean, this might be number 3, but yeah. so
having a
funny.
comeback.
He's like a new song anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Don't go that far.
I mean, he's great and all, but
Yeah, I know.
that's
He's
hilarious.
done very good with that one-hit wonder, though, that's for sure.
You know what though? If I could just one book would take off like that one song did. I mean, why not?
It's true, though. Look at Gone with the Wind,
Right. Yes.
right?
Why not? Why not me? But
Yeah.
no, there are
Oh,
just too many characters in my head. I can't stick to just
I
one
know.
anyway.
They just keep talking. They
Jeez
just keep talking.
Louise.
Well, I'm like, when a lot of them come talk to me when I'm out walking the dog, and I'm like, I feel like a schizophrenic right now. I have a lot of voices happening in my head, and then I'm like, I love listening to music, and music will inspire me. Singer songwriters are my jam, and then I'll be listening to them, and then that'll inspire a story or something, and then the characters start, and I'm like, oh my gosh, who are you now? Where did you come from? Like,
Yes.
here comes another personality. Like turning into Sybil in my brain.
I love that. Well, it's really funny because, like I said, with this book, I heard a song that triggered it in my head. But then what got really crazy is that all of my characters started writing song lyrics. And
Oh,
so, like, I've got multiple. Now I'm just looking for somebody who's a musician to put music to my song lyrics that my characters have written. And I'm just like, I don't need one more thing in my head. But there it is. There it
yeah,
was. It's
yeah,
happening. Yeah.
yeah. That's so cool, though.
It's pretty amazing. Like, I kind of surprised myself, not going to lie.
That is really cool because I think it's wow, that's so different too, because there are authors that'll like talk about recipes in the story and then they'll include the recipe at the end of the book. But the song, oh, that's very cool.
Well,
Yeah.
and he, the male main character in Fall When You're Ready, the in February book, he wants to be a country music artist. Like that's his dream. That's what he wants to do. And he ends up on a reality show singing competition for country music. And so it just kind of flowed from there. And so then book two is one of the other contestants, well, two of the other contestants and their stories. And it just kind of like all of a sudden, all these people are writing songs. And I'm going, wait, but I don't play music. Like I don't write music. I play instruments, but I don't write music. And so if anybody's listening and they want to write some music, hit me up.
Or that could be your next thing. You never know.
I can promise you it won't be. I can't even hold a guitar right. Like I have tried so many times. I want to so badly, but I also didn't pay attention well in piano lessons. So unless
Yeah.
I could play French horn or trumpet or clarinet, which is not really country music,
You're like, I'll be in the back.
I got the tambourine, baby.
Yeah, there you go. Oh gosh, I love it.
It's so goofy.
Oh
Anyway,
my gosh, you're too funny. You're too funny.
yeah, sometimes.
This has been so much fun.
It is. It is so much fun. And listen, I'm just going to tell everybody that's watching and listening, and anybody who's going to watch later, like y'all need to follow Wendy on. I know she's on TikTok, and I know she's on Instagram, and I know she's on Facebook. Do you post your haikus and stuff on all of those? On all of those?
Pretty much my author page on Facebook app, definitely, and TikTok, definitely.
Okay, so like, because I follow her on Instagram and TikTok, and I'm like I look for those, and I just love them. Like I can't write haikus, I can write song lyrics, but I can't write haikus not and make them make sense. And so I'm just always waiting for Monday. I'm like, where's the haiku?
Oh, you're so sweet. I know, I love them. And
They're
they come up
fun.
throughout the week whenever. Like I already have next Monday's already written. I do. They're so fun for me. I don't. It's so weird. I don't know what it is. I get the next one is called Mama's Time.
Nice.
Night has come, time to relax. Put her feet up, kick back. Did someone say my name?
Yes, you know
Right, right. That's what happens every time. I remember I was sitting in our backyard and we used to have a hammock. And I think I posted on Facebook or whatever, and I'm like, shh, don't tell my family. I'm back in the backyard. I'm having a moment to myself. And you hear the kids inside going, Mom, where are you? And I'm like, oh, it was gonna be like I got 2 seconds, But now my kids are older because I have a 20 and 17-year-old. So now it's the animals.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, really, you guys, come on. Like, why does the cat have to use the litter box at the same time as me when I'm using the bathroom? Like, we don't need to share space.
I've done this before with 2-legged babies.
No, exactly. I'm like, you go you do you, and then I'll, like, come on.
Oh,
But
God.
yeah, so now I'm that way with the animals, and I'm like, all right, give me a break, y'all. The dog's like, wait, are you going out? That means I get to go out, right? We're going for a walk. We're going to go for a walk. We're going to go. And I'm like, no, no, I want to go by myself. I need time to myself. Yeah.
Nope, no rest for mom. It does not matter. 2 legs, 4 legs does not matter. There's
I
no
know,
rest for
I
it.
know, I know. It is. It's the mom thing. It is.
It is. And I wonder sometimes I could totally go off on topic here for forever, but like sometimes I wonder if it's because um we allow it for so long and we don't set those boundaries because I know for me like it took me I realized she was probably more independent way younger than I allowed her to be,
Yeah,
right? Like I could have let her be way more independent sooner, but I felt responsible, not like obligated. I felt obligated to make sure that she had everything and didn't let her kind of do her own thing
yeah,
too often that I didn't know how to set those boundaries later and be like, "Hey, I'm working. Like seriously, is this just a fun conversation or is this like life or death?" Like
yeah.
yeah.
I did, especially with my son, where my coworker, I was teaching preschool, and my coworker, I was saying something to her, and she was like, "Oh, you need to stop." She's like, "You need to train him to go play by himself, that he can do things by himself." And thank God for her. I remember it was my son was going off to kindergarten, and she had just dropped her son off at college. So we were in very different stages of
Yeah.
our lives. And she was like, I want you to go home and you're going to set a timer and you're going to tell him when the timer goes off, then you can come and ask mommy a question. And I did it. Like, it was crazy. It was like 5 minutes, then 10 minutes, then 15. And then next thing you know, my son can play by himself for hours. And I'm like, why did I do that to myself?
Yeah.
But so the interesting thing is because now I'm going to be such a hypocrite. I wrote my kids' books. The first one, both of them are conversations that I've had for years with my parents or in parent teacher conference. The first one is Use Your Imagination. Is Maggie Malone in her imagination about reminding children, use your imagination, go play, put the tablet down, go play. And then the mom in the book models how to play with the toys, and they make a pizza party with their stuffed animals, and that's something I've said to my parents, like, put it away. They let them be kids, let
Yep.
them play.
Yep.
And then the second book, Maggie Malone, I Can Do It All by Myself, which I have to say to my daughter's voice, I can do it all by myself, mama. She's so independent. But it is, and that one is about self-help skills and teaching, letting kids do things by themselves, letting them learn. Yeah, it may take longer in the beginning, but then it's so worth it afterwards. And they take so much pride in being able to put on their coat by themselves and put on their shoes or zip up their backpack or whatever, you're having them do. And so in that book, Maggie learns from her peers at school, because they do. They learn from their peers. And then she gets to show her mama that she can do it all by herself. And in the beginning of the book, Maggie and mama are always late for school. But in the end, when Maggie can do it all by herself, they're not late anymore.
Oh.
And it's like those things. And it's like, it's just a parenting lesson. It's just, we learn the hard way.
It is.
And
It is
it,
well, but we bring it on ourselves too. Like we don't say, "Hey, let me just let you do this," because either we haven't planned for it or what have you, or I just like I said, I felt guilty making her do stuff that I'm the mom, I should be doing this. But what kind of disservice did I do her not letting her do it herself or learning to do it herself until way later? Like, man, we would have all had fewer headaches, I think.
but it is. It's like, yeah, oh, but this is my job. I'm mom, and then
Mhm.
afterward, and then afterwards we look back and we're like, yeah, maybe I think about my son. My son, he's the first one, your first child. You're just like, you don't know what you're doing. You get the book, What to Expect When You're Expecting. Great. What to expect the first year. Great. Where's the one? What to expect the rest of their lives.
The next 17 years. Thank you.
I've had to say, I've never parented a 15-year-old boy before. I've never met a 15-year-old boy. I don't know what you're doing. Like even my daughter, like, when I've never lived in the world that you live in right now, you
Mm-mm.
know? Like I still remember play clothes and school clothes. Yeah. I'm like, are you going to change out of your pajamas to go to school? What are you talking about? I already changed. You did?
Are you sure?
Yeah, because those look like sweats to me.
Oh
But
yeah. It's very different. It is so different. But that's why we don't get a break. That's why we don't get rest because they're constantly seeking us out because we let them for so long. So, hey, moms, just so you know, I mean, just saying, if you want a break, start teaching them to live for themselves, by themselves, within reason. Obviously, I mean, obviously,
timers work. Timers work. Give me 10 minutes and I'll be right there.
yes.
But
Well,
that's the hard thing is that too,
mm,
as mothers, that mom guilt of feeling like you're always saying, I'll be right there. I'll be right
yeah,
there. I'm coming. And then it's like, oh my gosh, all I do is put you off and I should give you my 100% attention. It's a weird balance of like, I got to get these things done and I want to be present for you.
right.
It
Yeah,
is very, especially when your kids are younger, because they do need you so much for their I don't know, daily living skill,
yeah,
and then as they get older, it's just more emotional.
right. Oh gosh, and where's that balance? I don't know. Still figuring it out. She's
Yeah.
14 this next month, and I don't know. I don't know.
Kid, my son's in college and I still haven't figured it out.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good. I'm
I
40.
mean,
My mom still hasn't figured it out. Like
oh yeah. Well, it's so, and isn't it interesting? Like I think back to like growing up and when the way that I would like some of the things that I view my mom and be like, or dad or whatever, and be like, I just don't understand you. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, I so get it. I so get. Oh, speaking of like getting it, like okay, so I don't have them on right now because they cause a glare, but I used to wear contacts forever, but now I have to have progressive lenses. I need readers in distance, so I have progressives. So I'm like, okay, so now I don't wear contacts anymore. I live in glasses because what's the point? I'm just going to be putting on my readers anyways. And I remember thinking, oh, I'll be wearing my contacts forever. I'm not going to wear daily glasses, blah, blah. Oh, yeah, I'm so all over glasses. The same thing with like the old women with the velour or whatever sweatsuit. I get it. Elastic bands are so much more comfortable than jeans with zippers. Like,
yes.
I understand. And I feel like it's a rite of passage,
And I'm here for it. Like,
right?
let's get old, baby.
I know. Like, I am okay with elastic bands,
Yes, ma'am.
You know, like I love how people will make fun of like be like, oh, the mom's in the yoga pants. It's comfortable. Like,
Thank you very much.
yeah. I'm actually in sweats right now, and I've been like this the whole day.
Me too. I'm in my pajama pants and my
Yeah,
sweatshirt, and I am happy.
exactly. I'm comfortable. I'm happier when I'm comfortable. I remember when I was a teacher, our favorite day was always pajama day. Yes, it made the kids absolutely crazy, but man, were we comfortable and we were happy and we're relaxed and we're sitting on the floor with the kids and we're just like, like that's how we should be every day.
Yes. Oh my goodness. And I guarantee you those kids remember on pajama day, we learned da 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 because we were adults.
Exactly. Exactly. We learned how to sequence the napping house. It was amazing. Yeah.
Miss Heller was never happier.
Exactly. She was so excited. She always says, that's my favorite. This is my, every time I write a book, this is my favorite book. And this is my favorite book. And I love this book, but it's so true. I'm realizing like, yeah, like there are certain things and welcome to 40 for you that are rites of passages.
Oh, yes. And it's so funny because I remember my parents being 40, right? Like I remember thinking, man, they've got it all together. And you know, I can see so differently when I was even 10 years ago. Like I do feel like I have it all together, but I don't have it all figured out. But I
Yeah.
have way more together in life than I did 10 years ago. And I'm like, 40 is looking pretty good.
Oh, yeah.
I
Well,
feel it.
I'm a decade older than you. I turned 50 this year, and
Nice.
it was building up to 50, that I ended up like saying I was 50 like 6 months before I was actually 50. And I don't know if it was me getting used to, like, I had to like give myself time to process saying it. So I gave myself a little bit of leeway. Like, yeah, I'm 50. Well, not really, but I'm 50.
Almost, yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna work on it. We're working on it. Um, and the interesting thing about it is now I'm like, well, 50 is not as old as I thought it was going to be. Like, remember you saw someone 50 when you were younger and you're like, oh, yeah, they're 50. Yeah, you're 50. Oh, you're 50. And now I'm like,
50's
it's
feeling pretty good.
okay. I'm all right. I've earned this 50, but there's
Yes.
something to be said about like the maturity and the growth and the fact that now I'm just like, I joke around with my poetry book that it started as a who am I and where do I belong in this world, to the ending where it's like, this is me.
Yep.
Here I am.
Take it or leave it.
I think we do. We get to the point where it's just like all of the things that used to bother us, we let go of the little things.
It's so freeing. And I wish that I could like open up every little head of all of those little 20-year-old girls,
Oh, yeah.
like I was, and pour it in there and be like, listen, babe, what anybody else thinks does not matter. But
Yeah.
I lived for everybody else's reasons and expectations and opinions. And I was like, gee, in the last 2 years, oh my goodness, I have never felt more comfortable in my own skin as my own
Oh,
person. You know what I mean? And so like to
yes, and I
me,
love that
40,
for
thank
you.
you.
Yeah,
Like 40 just felt like I have arrived at something. What? I don't know, but I have
yeah.
arrived and I love my life the way it is. And I love myself more than I ever have. And I wish I could go back to that 20-year-old girl who was me, and any 20-year-old woman out there who was like, what they think matters. And I'm like, no, it doesn't. It
Yeah,
really doesn't.
yeah. Well, that's with my daughter, being 17, and I remember she had dated this kid or this boy for 6 months, and they were breaking up. They broke up or whatever, and it was just like all of the things that she and her girlfriends were perseverating on. I was like, I can guarantee you, Miranda, they're not thinking about that.
Nope.
They are not thinking. They are not thinking. They are teenage boys and they are not thinking about
Yep.
anything deep right now.
Nope.
Like
And they
it's
probably won't for the next 20 years. You know what I mean?
exactly.
Like,
Yes, yes. This is all your feelings coming out, but I can guarantee you he's not having these same feelings. And it's not to discredit her feelings, but it's for her to understand like they just don't think that way.
no, no.
You know, they don't. And I think that's like you said, open up those younger girls' brains and be like, yeah, you know what? Stop worrying about all that stuff
Yes.
because, you know, it
Yep.
in the, as my daughter when she was little, she used to say, Mama, in the grand scheme of things, but it's true. Like in the grand scheme of things, so many little things that I don't know what I'm trying to say. Oh, but so many things that we focused our attention on.
Gave power to.
Yes, gave power to. Beautiful, exactly. Gave
Mhm.
power to. Don't you wish you could just go back to that? And even when I was putting together all the poems for my first poetry book, the ones that I wrote when I was like a late teen, early 20, and I was like, oh, you poor child, like
Right?
you poor thing. Like,
Oh.
you poor thing. I'm like, oh, what did it matter? Did it really?
I know, and that, but and I know, I realize that having those thoughts and having those opinions and having those feelings made me who I am now.
Yes.
But how much heartache and stress could have been saved? Like how many fewer gray hairs might I have
Oh,
today
yeah.
had I not?
Yeah. Well, that's the one thing I always try to say to my kids is that, and you were just kind of saying this, is that every person that I have encountered in my life, whether good or bad, has made me the person I am today. And I like that person. I'm okay. I'm happy with this person. So I have gratitude
Yes.
even for those experiences and those people, even if some of it was hurtful, traumatic, whatever the case may be, joyful, whatever, I'm here because of that. And thank you, you know?
Yes. Oh, and I love that, like, being grateful for even the hard things, the ugly things, the things that, hurricanes make a huge difference because and I grew up in South Alabama where we had on the beach where we had hurricanes, and we had this little tree in our yard where, it had been planted for, oh, probably 2 years, and it did not get taller. It was maybe 3 feet tall. Hurricane Danny, and I can't remember, it was in the '90s. Hurricane Danny came through, and it whipped everything into, like, frenzies. Like, it was crazy. That little tree, we did not think we were certain that tree was going to die. Do you know within like 6 months that tree had like doubled in size? And we don't know why, but the only difference had been it had been through a hurricane, right? The hurricane that should have destroyed, but it did not. Instead, it just made it a healthier, stronger
Stronger.
tree, right? Like the roots
Yeah.
had to dig in. And so I'm thinking, yeah, I'm grateful for those hard times. Now, if I can just spare my daughter the heartache, please learn
Yeah.
from my mistakes, right? Like,
Yeah.
learn from my experiences so you don't have to deal with those hurricanes. But if you do, it should make you stronger in the end. Be thankful.
Yeah. And I think that's the biggest challenge as the parent is watching them go through this, knowing, okay, this is part of life. This is a life lesson. These things are going to, and how we can help guide them through these situations. And, when they need to cry, just let them cry. And I had to learn because my kids called me out on it. Sometimes I don't need you to solve my problem. I just need you to listen,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and that's hard as a mother. I'm like, but you're my baby. I want to protect you. And why can't I beat up another 12-year-old kid? Like,
It's illegal.
I know, but I'm like, but he wasn't nice to you.
Yeah.
But my daughter who had, I'm so proud of her. She just got into college, her college of choice, I should say.
Yay.
And she's had a IEP, an individual education plan through special education since first grade. Yeah. We just had her final meeting.
Mm.
And I think about the last 4 years of her life and I'm like, oh my gosh, how amazing are you? Like to be able to see your kids go through, like you said, like those hard times, like that tree came out stronger. You don't want them to have to go through that, and you just want to protect them and keep them in your bubble. But then to see the person they've become and how they've learned or grown or handled, and so
Yes.
they can handle the next one. It's like we had her final PPT, and I was sitting there in it going, "Oh my gosh,
Mm.
I am so impressed by you, girl. You are so brave. You are so strong. You have done so much for yourself." And it was pretty amazing because there was a point where all of us, including her, we weren't sure she was even going to graduate high school because she was just struggling. COVID just destroyed her.
Yeah.
A lot of kids, it destroyed.
Mhm.
It was so isolating, and it was supposed to be her freshman year of high school, and everything shut down, and all the things that she was excited when you're 15. Thank you, Taylor Swift, for building up the 15 year, since she was 8 years old. But, to see how far they've come, and it's like,
Mm.
okay, you're right. It's going to make you stronger. But man, did I not want to have her have to go through any of it.
Oh my gosh. Yes. And again, that's where that mom, like, obligation, guilt, compassion, all of those things
Yeah.
like come head to head, and you're just like, I should be able to fix this. And you shouldn't. You
Yeah.
shouldn't. Like, yeah, be there, do what they need you to do, but don't try to fix it all. That's always, I'm a fixer. I am so a
I
fixer.
know, I know. Well, that's why it's like I'm glad my kids called me out on it and said, just I don't need you to solve my problem. I need you to just listen. And I would sit there and I'd listen, and in my head, I would solve it. Because I'm like, but I want to so bad. And I'm like giving advice only in my head, and I'm responding only in my head, but it's so hard.
It is so hard. Oh my
It's
gosh.
just it's ridiculous, like how much like we just want to protect them. And then now I'm in that transition of I'm still we still my husband and I we have our children and we're still parenting our children, but now we're starting to parent our parents because of their aging and they're declining. And it's really it's I remember watching my mom, especially my mom, go through it with her mom and seeing it and knowing I'm like, oh wow, okay, here this is where we're at. You
Oh
know, this
yeah.
yeah.
It's made me very aware because my parents are still, they were always the young parents. They had, I was born, my mom was like 21. So they were the young parents of all of my friends. My husband's parents are almost a decade older. And so we've seen that happen sooner kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it has made me very aware because our kid's an only child. And so we've had it literally in the last couple of weeks. I'm like, here's the thing. She cannot be solely responsible for us, right? She grows up,
Mm,
gets married, she has her own life. We have to have a plan in place. And like, I've never been more aware of mortality,
yeah.
just watching his parents age and then my parents, not far behind kind of thing. So, oh my gosh. Yeah. Mm.
Well, that's exactly like it's like we've just started talking about my in-laws live about 50 minutes away and we started talking like we're really going to have to start looking at places close to us so when the time comes we know. And we have friends who've had to do that, but it's like okay, no, and, with their parents like okay, no, this here we are, we're at this point where we really have to I don't know, you just, you start watching the decline. And my dad was always, I'm the strong, I'm the father, I'm going to take care of
Mhm.
everything. And just to see him physically get weaker,
Oh,
it's even hard just to see that,
yes, it
you
is.
know?
And it's not there's that weird dance that you do where it's like, do you want my help? I know you need my help, but do you want my help? Where's the line that I don't need to
Yeah.
cross, to make you feel lesser than, but at the same time, you need to stop doing
Yeah.
what you're doing? Yeah. Mm.
Yeah. Well, that's my mom. She's like that. She's always like, she never slows down. She's always going, 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 going. And it's like, sit down, mom, sit down, just sit down. Like, just sit. Like, nobody needs any food. We're all good. Your neighbors are fine. You don't need to go check at them. But it's just that's her personality,
Yes.
But it's so, yeah. And then, yeah, it's that like, I just want to be like, sit down, just
Yes.
sit down.
Oh my
And I'm
gosh.
like, all I want to do is sit down. I'm like, just please sit, like for me.
Well, and that's my father-in-law, bless his heart. Like he already had, some health scares with his heart and that kind of thing over the last 15 years or so. And even in the last 10 years, really. And so it's been one of those things where we're like, you need to know your limits. Like physically,
Yeah.
you can't do the same thing you did 20 years ago. Your body is saying slow down. And he thought it was saying work harder, to do better
Uh,
and that kind of thing. And so we've really seen just in the last year, really like a massive slowdown, which is almost scary because it's like, "Ooh, is this because you want to or because you need to? Like,
yeah.
where are we on this spectrum?" So, oh my god.
Yeah. Well, and I think that we all, I guess, I don't know. It shifts. My husband is a runner. He ran a marathon. He's done more ridiculous half marathons. Like,
Bless his heart. No.
God bless him because I don't even want to run to the mailbox. I'm like, no. Um, and so he can't run anymore. So because his knees, just the impact is too much.
Mhm.
And so now he's always been a mountain biker, but he's doing it more and he's cycling now. He's road biking. So that's what he's transitioned to. So he's modified for himself for his physical ability.
Sorry, my internet connection just like
But that's
sorry.
glitched. Yeah, that's all right. So that's and I think it's realizing like we just have to like our bodies are shifting and changing, and I don't know, maybe it's easier for women because they constantly shift and change
Right.
without warning. I'm like really.
Surprise,
Um,
it's another day.
I know exactly. And so But, for me with my psoriatic arthritis, there are a lot of things I physically can't do that I used to be able to do. And I'm learning to accept it and do different things. And I don't know that our parents' generation had that.
Mm-mm.
It was just go, 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 go to work. You go. It doesn't matter if you don't like your job. You just do it.
Yep.
You pay the bills. You support your family,
Yep.
You get back from fighting a traumatic war. It doesn't matter. You get up the next day and you go to work.
That's right.
Like.
And now we're calling out because our dog is sick and we have to go to the vet. You know what I mean? Like,
It's so true. It's so sad. Oh my gosh, that's so true. Oh my gosh, that's so funny and so true.
it is so true. And there is a big difference. And I can't even imagine what the next generation is going to look like. And so I'm just like, but yeah. Mm.
Yes. Can't help you all.
Woo!
Oh,
Bless their hearts. That's all,
Yes, I love that. It's your heart.
It has so many meanings and we mean them all when we say them. It is.
Yes. Exactly.
Oh my gosh. Okay, Wendy, I'm going to let you get back to, because I know you've got family that needs.
I know my poor husband is upstairs with the flu, and I'm just like, you're going to be okay. If you need anything, call our daughter.
Mom's in her happy place right now, so no talking.
Here's your Tamiflu and your Gatorade. Yeah.
Take a nap. That's right.
Yeah.
So funny. Okay, but before we do go, tell us where, how can we find you on social media, your website, all that good stuff, so we can find your book come March.
Oh, absolutely. And I am going to do I'm going to release a couple of chapters, preview.
Yes.
Little breadcrumbs, little feeders. Yes. So my website is wendyhellerauthor.com. Easy peasy. Yes. And I am on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook, Wendy Howler. At Instagram is at wendy.howls, and Facebook is Wendy Howler. Yeah, just Wendy Howler, Wendy Howler author, for my Facebook page. And then TikTok, I don't even know. Isn't that terrible? What am I? Wendy Howls. I think it's Wendy Howls. Isn't that terrible? I should know all this.
No, I get it. That's why I literally have J.Car rights for everything, because I will not remember otherwise.
That's so smart. It is Wendy Howell's author.
Nice.
Yes. I'm so sad. I'm like, who am I? Where am I? But so I will have, so I do, yes, come see my, every Monday, I do a Monday haiku, Sunday night inspiration, Monday haiku. I post some of my poems on my website. I always have either works in progress or poetry that I have done. I do my blog with thoughts. This week's blog is actually going to be about when the child becomes the parent, because that's, that's kind of near and dear to my heart right now. And then I had started writing my blog about your heart's desire. Do what your heart desires. Why wait? Do what your heart desires. But then when the parent becomes the child really spoke to me, because my mother-in-law was in the hospital. She's fine. She just I am an overshare. So she had pancreatitis. She's fine now. But she was in the hospital for Thanksgiving. So we spent our Thanksgiving back and forth. Again, that's just the stage we're at, You do it. You do these things because they're family, and we love family.
That's right. That's right.
We love them, and they drive us crazy.
That's right.
In the end, we're all we got. And that's why I tell my kids all the time, you guys got to figure out how to get along, because in the end, you're all you got.
That's it. That is so true. Like, and if for some reason, I think about our daughter being an only child, I'm like, she's going to have to create her own family one day, right? Like, we're not going to always be here. So, if she doesn't get married, hopefully she has herself surrounded with friends, because that's going to be who she has, so you can make your own family if you don't have one.
Well, I was just going to say, sometimes the friend family is a lot easier to deal with than the family.
I would never say that.
I didn't say it. I didn't say it out loud. I don't know what you're
It's just general information.
Yes, exactly. Out there, I did love the show Friends, so maybe that's the connection I'm making.
That's it, for sure.
That's it. We'll go with it.
Oh my God. Wendy, please let's do this again
Yeah,
sometime.
so fun. All right. Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm so
Thanks for
grateful.
hanging out. Yeah, no, like seriously, it's been like over an hour and a half, and I was like, she's got to, I know she has
I
things to
know,
do,
I
but
know,
we can just talk all night.
I know. There's always that's why I even put on my post the conversational flow and don't know where it goes.
And you don't always connect with people, right? Like you can't
Mm,
always have these connections with people, but I was like, there were a select few that I was like, we could definitely talk for hours about anything and everything and nothing.
yeah,
And I love that. So
I
thanks
know.
for being one of those people.
Oh, thank you. And thank you for being that for me.
For sure. Okay, we'll do it again. But in the meantime, keep everybody healthy, get everybody healthy, stay
Yeah.
well.
Yes. You too. And I can't wait
Thanks.
for your book when it comes out.
February 1st. Woohoo!
Okay. So February 1st, we're going to read your book. And then March, we'll do mine.
Perfect. Okay.
All
In the
right.
meantime, have a great night.
All right. You too. Take care.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.